this is a basic example of nested JSON over here. Of course, just a diagram, and I'll walk you through very quickly. Now here in general, nested JSONs or any kind of JSON, first it will have curly braces, and inside curly braces it will have a key and value, this kind of section or part. Like here I have these two curly braces, and so that makes it JSON. And now inside JSON we have a key and we have a value, okay? And here I have another key, but inside this key, well, I have over here another JSON. You can understand it like this section, okay? So that's another JSON. So JSON inside JSON, that's called nested JSON. That also means that outside you have curly braces and inside you have another curly braces, and within the inner curly braces you have more key pair values. So we know that first condition for format to be JSON, it has to have a key and value. So we have over here, so that's the first JSON, and inside it we also have another key and values wrapped around the curly braces. So that makes it the other JSON or the nested JSON, okay? So in general, nested JSON would look like this: outside curly braces, and internally it will also have curly braces, okay? So that's the most basic idea. All right, so that's all about theory. Now we'll come over here, and over here you can just type it in .pad.dev, and it will take you this kind of page, and over here we'll clear some ideas. Now over here definitely we have seen what is called nested JSON, but before we go further we have to clarify another idea, which is called map, and later on we'll see how map and JSONs are connected, and we'll see how map, JSONs and models are connected, okay? So they are all connected. So over here we'll clarify part of the idea about map. So I'll go ahead and declare a map variable, and I'll call it var, and I'll call it my map, okay? All right, now in Dart, if we declare a variable and variable's body section, if it has curly braces, that makes it a map, okay? Now just like JSON we saw over here, key value, map also has a key value format, okay? So that's what we're going to do. Here we'll do the basic one first. I would do name, and I would say Dastagir, that's my name though. And now here I would write age. Here I would write 34, and here I would do city, I would do Shanghai, okay? All right, so that's what made it a basic map, okay? So anything wrapped around curly braces, and inside that you have this key and value, just like JSON, that makes it a map. Of course, in Dart there are other different ways to declare map. Now for those understanding, you have to come over here. This is another article that I created. There are a few different ways that you can create map. Like this is the first way, just now we did. This is the second way, where you can have first create a map instance using this constructor, and you create the keys and put the value directly. And there's the other way, third way, okay? Now over here you mention the type of the key and the value. So in our case here we are saying our keys, they all should be string, and the values are dynamic. So that means they could be string, or they would be integer, or any other type, okay? So that's what makes it dynamic. I will come over here, and basically in this section would be sticking to this format of map, but here actually just what we saw, and over here the basic idea is same, because over here we have these things are called keys, and they are all string. Now the value, it's string or integer, as you can see over here. All right, so over here we see this is how we declare a map and create values for them in a pair within using keys, okay? Now we'll see how to access them, okay? Now over here, and generally you'd go and you do like my map, and if you over here, if you write your keys name like name, so name is my key over here for the first one, and I'll just hit run, and we'll see it prints values. Okay, all right, so hopefully it makes sense. So that's how you access the items inside a map using the keys. Okay, well, there are other different ways, but here we'll just stick to this one. Okay, all right, so that's the most basic map. Okay, but just now we saw map looks more like JSON, what we saw over here. Okay, yeah, within curly braces, key and value in this format, right? So you could say they are relatives or cousins. All right, now we'll see what is a nested map. Okay, or nested map, or the same over here, what is nested JSON. Okay, now while over here I already have this one. Okay, now I'll create another field, and over here I would call, say, address. Okay, now after that I'll put it like this. I'll put this brackets over here. Okay, now for address I'll create one map inside of it. All right, now here I'll say country, and here I would do, say, China. Okay, and here I would do city, and here I would write, say, Shanghai. All right, now here I'll copy this one and put a comma over here, and I'll put it one more time again. Now here I'll write, say, Bangladesh, and city Dhaka. Okay, so here over here this is a map, right? But while this section has a key pair value, right? Okay, but what is this? Now here in Dart, whenever you see something is wrapped around this kind of braces, that's called a list. So what do we have here? So here we have list of maps. So this is a list of maps. We have two maps. You can have more maps. Okay, that's what we saw earlier. If we go back to our JSON file, remember here it's a JSON format, but the most amazing part about this JSON and map, they're pretty similar. Okay, yeah, I would say a lot of time 99% similar. Okay, yeah. So when if you understand what is JSON, then get your head around map becomes pretty easy. Okay, so now here I have this key, and well, in this case this is also key, but this key contains a list, and a list contains a map. Okay, so here I have list of maps. Okay, now for this one, pretty much how do you want to access this one? But here just now we saw we could do my map, and here I can print name. All right, now I can run it, and I will see this one, my name over here, printed. But of course, if you try to do this one, my map, and let's see address, let's see the result. Okay, so it does print whatever inside of this. Okay, yeah. Now there is another way to access this thing, not like this. Say I just want to have a particular value from it, like the country for the first map. Okay, I want to just get the country or the city name, whatever you want. I think I have a typo over here though. All right, anyway, so we can do that, but how we do that? Now here I'll type over here. Now I know that I can access this one, right? So here what I'll do, I'll create a new variable, and I'll call it address list, and here we'll save this list which is coming from our map. We'll save that in a new variable, and I will call it address map. Okay, all right, so let's see. Oh, that is my map, not my map. All right, okay, so now I took this list. Now this list definitely coming from here, and that's the maps key. So I took the maps key, one of the keys, and interestingly this key contains a list, right? So now this is a list. So if this is a list, I can access it. Okay, access the inner variables or inner items. Okay, not variables, the inner items. And how I would do that? Well, here I would do address list as list. You need to cast it to list, and then we'd use for each. Okay, and it takes elements, and each of the elements we'll call it V, or we can call it E. This is the convention. Okay, now here we can do a print. So here we do E country, and now we'll print it over here. Let's see, and let's see how things go. Right, so the first country is China, the second country is Bangladesh. Okay, so when you convert it to a list, and each time it will take one of them, and after taking that, it will try to take the key, whatever the key you mention over here, and from that one it will print the values. So over here we could do city, and we'll see different results, right? So now we know what is nested map, and so which is pretty similar to our nested JSON. Well, now once again I'm going back to this one again and again, because in general you in your app, in your Flutter app, you'll have your JSON, this kind of JSON actually coming from the server, and once you take it from the server, it pretty much look like this. Okay, so actually once you take it from the server, I would call it map instead of JSON, even though the convention, they say it's all JSON, but the format it gives you, most of the server side, when you return data for RESTful API, the data is pretty much JSON response, and most of them, they have this kind of format. And we'll see that the RESTful API we are going to build and use, that also returns this kind of JSON, and which is pretty similar to map. And if it is similar to map, we can do this lot of things because it becomes a map. All right. Okay, so that's the basic idea about map and nested map and nested JSON. Well, now how to go ahead and build a model for this one? That's what we'll see now. Okay, now we'll go ahead and build a model. Now, why you should build a model? Well, once you build a model, there are tons of benefits. Okay, well, you really don't want to work on your Flutter project or app using map and access them like this, like earlier we did. Okay, say for example my map name like this. Okay, you don't want to do that, because as your project gets bigger, it will be hard to maintain, especially the naming thing. If you want to change, that's very difficult because you have to name in a lot of places. But once you do build a model, you just change in one place, and that makes your life easy. Okay, and there are lots of other benefits, and this is also a good practice. So I strongly suggest, whenever you have JSON file or map in your Flutter app, and if you're going to do some build a class or make some operation on them, so try to build a model based on your map, and it will make your life a lot easier. And the building model class idea is same throughout other framework or languages. Okay, so once you master how to build a model based on a map, you'll see when you try to learn another language, it becomes pretty easy. Okay, the idea is always same, just like we saw how JSON and map, they are similar, right? So the ideas are all transferable. Okay, anyway, so to build a model, first we'll create a class over here, and the class name I'll declare person. Now why I'm doing that? Because here in this map I have person's information. Okay, that's why, but you can name it anything you want. Now here first I'll go ahead and type string name, int age, and string city. Well, for now I'm not going to put this one, we'll do it later. For now I'm going to cut it, take it out. Well, now here you see this is a small class where I have this members, and the members names are same as the keys in my map, right? So in general, when you build a model, and you should have fields, and those fields, they should relate to your JSON file or map keys names. Okay, so these are the keys names. That's why you should do that. Now this is a small map, and for this small map we build a small class which is a model, right? Of course we still have constructor, so we'd go ahead and do constructor over here. We'd do person this dot name, and this dot age, and this dot city. Okay, all right, so now it makes now it's pretty much complete class over here. based on this map. So we also say that this is a model. Okay, now for such a simple map, we have a simple model. Okay, so all the fields from here are here. Now take a look, we have this one. So what does it tell us? Now it tells us that this is another map, right? Well, they're repeating, but the format is same. So inside this value, inside this key, there is another map. Okay, so that means here we have to go ahead and declare a map, not string or int. We have to more like something that's based on this map, actually, not really declare a map, based on this map. Now earlier we saw that we get this for this, right? Now that also means that for this section we build a model. Okay, so here inside for this section we have to build another model. Now we will have two models. So that tells us that it's a list of models over here, right? So that means for this section I have to create a model, and for the related field inside this model I have to create a list. In that list I'll put this models. Okay, because it's a list of maps, from each map we make a model. So here from list of maps we create list of models. Okay, so the ideas are pretty similar. Okay, all right. Now over here what I'll do, I'll go ahead and copy this one first, and I'll put it here and I'll call it address. Okay, yeah. Now here just think this address as a separate map. Now it is two field, country and city. Okay, so here I would do country, and well, we already have city, so we'll just put it there. Okay, now here all we need to remove this one, and here we need to write country. Okay, remember they should be similar. All right, now here instead of person we would write address. Okay, okay, so now I have a large map, and for that map we have a model, but of course this model is not complete. Inside that map we have another map, and for that map we build another model. Now because this is a big map, it has another map, so inside this model we'll create a list of models. Okay, that's what we're going to do. So that's why here we'll write list address, and here we'll call address. Okay, hopefully it makes sense. Now once you do like this, over here you also have to make some changes. Here you do this dot address, and yeah, we are good to go. That's it. So that's how you make models from nested map or from nested JSON. You make a model where they're nested models. So this is a model. Instead of this I have another model, and that is nested model. Okay, all right. Now before we go ahead and finish this section, we have to build another, we have to learn another important concept. A lot of time it'll inside your in this class you'll have another method that's called from JSON method. This is the convention, but I think you can call it anything you like. Okay, now it takes parameters. So the parameter type is map, and we know that map is pretty much more like string and dynamic type. So most of the time when you go ahead and build a model, and inside this model means class, right? So inside this class you will have a method, and that method is called JSON. Okay, so what actually you do based on this method, actually you create object. Okay, once you create object, if you know, say I create an object from person, so object name is person. Now I'll be able to use person to access the fields it has, like for example age or name, like that. Of course here we can't, there are other steps to do. Anyway, so this method takes a parameter, and that parameter is a map. Okay, and the map is string and dynamic. Earlier we learned that map could be string, the key could be string, and the value could be dynamic. Okay, that's what we learned early, and this is what we are doing now. Okay, Anyway, so here we are. So what it means that somewhere in my app, I'll call this function or call this method, and then I have to give it to a map. So I have to give it to a map like this. Okay, all right. And once I give the map to it, the values would be stored in JSON over here. So I can use this value, this variable, to retrieve those values and initialize them over here in this field. Okay, and based on that, we can create an object. Okay, hopefully it makes sense. So that's why here would come over here, and here we would do JSON. Now JSON should have name as a field inside of it, and then here we would do age, and JSON once again, and age. Remember what we're trying, so this one will have access to the map you give to your from JSON method. Okay, so as I said earlier, you'll send something like this to it over here. So that means these fields you have to use over here to create, assign the value to these fields and create object. So here we are now, and here we have this city. Now we'll do JSON city. Now, while next part is quite interesting. Now here you see we have a list, right? And this list takes a model. So how to work with this one? But we know that this is a list. Okay, now here it says it could be null, so we can go ahead and do a check if it's null or not. If it's null, we'll not do anything. If it's not null, what we'll do, we'll go ahead and work on this. So if it's not null, like this, okay, so here I do address. Now here we do address, and we'll write this statement. That means create a list. Okay, create a list, and that is empty address. Okay, well, so here we are creating a list, but because you see over here that means empty, and we assign it to this one. Of course this is this one. Okay, so, but at the same time this is means empty list, right? And the type is address. Okay, because the list has a type, it could have type, we know that. Okay, so that's why we are initializing this empty list to this one. Okay, hopefully it makes sense. Now this is the list over here, so this is a list. Okay, all right. Now we know that our address, this section, is also a list, because remember this one points to this section, and at the beginning of this section earlier we learned that this is a list of maps. Okay, so this is a list. Now here what we could do, we could use this one, I'm sorry, here we could use this one. Okay, and then each list has a method which is called for each. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So here we do for each, or maybe it might have an error. That's the null safety thing. So what we could do, we could come over here and we do this one as list. Okay, just like earlier we saw, and then we can access for each method. Okay, now if we do that, you can access them one by one using any variable you want, and then we'll put the curly braces, and then we are here. Okay, so what's happening here, so this one, even though it's a list, but we force it to be a pure list, or the list actually dart likes. Okay, so we are casting it, making sure, because after all this is coming from map or JSON file. Okay, it was not purely list, so I cast it to a purely list. Okay, now after that, this e, because it's a loop, this loop would run over here 2 times. So first e would refer to this one, second e would refer to this one. Okay, now remember this is a map. We learned that for map we can create a model, and we already did this one. Okay, so right now, as I said earlier, we'll pass this value and create an object. Okay, now of course to be able to use this one over here, we need to create another method over here, and the method is once again pretty much like this one. Okay, all right, so what I'll do, I'll go ahead and copy this one and I'll put it over here. I'll just simply change the name person to address. Now over here we don't need this section because we don't have, for this section we don't have any nested map or JSON. Okay, now I'll remove this and we're good to go. And over here we need to write country. So what do we have here? So over here we can just simply pass a map, and based on that map we can create an object, right? So this is a method. That also means that we can call this method from somewhere else, from some other classes. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. Now do remember, this section actually pretty much the same as this one. Only difference is this has a nested list, which it doesn't have. This has a nested list because this has a nested map. All right, anyway, so now we'll come over here. Now what we could do, we'll call this method. Okay, so here we'll do address add. Remember, this is the list, empty list, so we can put things inside it, and we are going to create objects and put that object inside this list. Okay, so here we'll do address dot from JSON. Okay, now all we need to do, we need to pass this one. Okay, so pass E. All right, and that's all. Let's see, we have an error. So here you can say that it's not null. Yeah, I'll talk about the error a little later. Now let's take a look at this one. So over here I'm looping through this address, this list over here, and each time I loop through I have access to this one. This is a map. Now I'm passing this map to this method, and it processes the information and it gets me an object, and I put that object in this list. Okay, and object type is list because we said that, sorry, the object type is address. Okay, so we are putting them all in a list. Okay, so hopefully it makes sense. We'll go back and see how to create objects based on these models. Okay, well, so here first I'll go ahead and create a new variable. I'll call it var and I'll call it obj, and here I would call person dot from JSON. Okay, now remember earlier we saw that we should pass a map to JSON. Okay, and we already have a JSON over here. And what is our JSON? So our JSON is my map. Okay, or map. All right, yeah, that's all it takes. So now we just created an object using our class or model, and we supplied it to a map or a JSON like this. Okay, now interestingly I could do a lot of interesting stuff with it. I could do obj.name. Okay, and it will print the name for me over here. It did. And I could do age. All right, now it will print the age for me. I could also do address. Okay, and of course here it will print this one because over here we are creating object and calling this method. So in this list, this is the list which I'm calling over here, which relates to this one. So now it stores, because of this one, inside this list over here it stores instance once it's create objects. Okay, of course we can access that. Now for that one to be accessed, here we need to do obj.map. Okay, map. Well, sorry, not really like that. So let's create a new variable first, and we'll call it my address, and here we do obj.address. So I'm just taking this chunk over here. Now I want to access each of the element within it, and for that one I would do my address dot map. Let's see. Okay, now here I can create an instance. I can access each of them. So this E would refer to each of them. It's a null checker. Make sure that it's not null. Okay, all right. Now here I could do print E dot. As you see, these fields are already there because it's an object. It's not a JSON anymore. Okay, so once you have object and you use the dot operator, you see the fields immediately. Okay, hopefully it makes sense. All right, let's see. Okay, now we need to convert it to list because map is not a list. So now we'll see over here. Let's see now, E country. Are we making any mistakes over here? Oh, sorry, I tagged it wrong over here. I need to tag it country, so it couldn't find it. Anyway, so now we'll come over here and we'll see the country's names are there. Okay, also that's how you build a class or a model based on your map or JSON. Okay, and that's how you create nested models or objects based on your nested map.